How about now? Better? There we go. No, it works now. You're wrong. I can see it working. Okay. There we go. So we are here for the final power rankings of the fall semester for the Collegiate Overwatch season. We will have an exciting spring semester ahead of us with some player moves, things like that, some teams moving up. It will be interesting and exciting. But for now, let me go ahead and move my face up here so that you guys can see the rankings themselves a little bit better, a place where we've got some dead space. So these are the final rankings. Not too much has happened since last time. Things that have happened. Fisher took a loss. Let's get a better color for that. Fisher took a loss, and it was with their main players to Siena Heights. So you might be going, why is Siena Heights here if Fisher took a loss to them? Do remember that as we go into the biggest tournament, the collegiate tournament here, we can see this is what the results were. Fisher got third in the most prestigious tournament, so that's going to be worth something. And Siena Heights did go out to Maryville. We sort of were waiting all semester for Siena Heights to get some meaningful matches. They, ran in upper bracket. They went down to Northwood. In other tournaments, they went out to Northwood. Here they went out to Northwood and Maryville. Totally respectable places to go out, but ultimately they got a win over Fisher. And for those of you who are going, what? That can't be true. Fisher just looked, the teams that looked to cut above everyone really were these teams here, or maybe these teams, and Winthrop was in a halvesy tier between the two. But Fisher, was able to take these down. Northwood couldn't quite handle UCI, but Northwood looked like it was just on the cusp of beating Fisher, and this was pretty clearly and definitively the team order from what we saw at the end of the ABC main Activision Blizzard Radiant tournament. Like, this was clearly the order. This is the most prestigious thing. We're absolutely not taking away Siena Heights' win. It blasted them from like down here-ish territory up to over here. Big swing for them. But they did also lose to Maryville in the big one, and we're not putting them in third place for a win over Fisher. We're not doing that with their breadth of experience at this point. Other big moves that we're going to see, CSULB repeated their win over Illinois Orange. This happened, they got a win over Illinois Orange in, what was it, in ABC at the end of Swiss stage, I want to say, but no one took that too seriously, or most people didn't take that too seriously, specifically because Illinois Orange told us that they had major latency issues, a bunch of people crashed playing at, 400 MS, all that stuff. The problem is, and this has been my problem with Illinois for a little bit now, it's been forever since they got a win. So I was sort of looking at that going, they haven't been losing matches that they shouldn't lose, other than when there's an excuse like, hey, they're playing with 2 subs, 3 subs, they're playing with 2 people off rolling, like happened last semester in ABC. Like this time they had to move around, people, etc. Like that's happened. They've had to move around a couple times. They had the laggy loss to CSULB. They had 3 losses last semester to Rutgers, which weren't bad losses. Rutgers would have been up here, maybe here last semester. But they hadn't actually gotten like a good win over what we would consider a core team in more than a year now. So I was kind of looking at this and thinking they were ripe for some vulnerability, and CSULB came in, got it, as far as I know, with no asterisks, just got that win. And honestly, even if there are asterisks at this point, that may hurt CSULB a tiny bit, but Illinois Orange needs to put wins on the board for me or probably anyone to really care again. Now, they haven't fallen out of my top 20. My top 20 ends here with Ball State for those that are counting, keeping track, whatever, but they are definitely out of my relevant teams list and pretty firmly out of my relevant teams list, and no amount of wins that they're supposed to get is going to get them back there. They're going to need a win against a relevant team there because it's just been too long, and now they have a second loss against CSULB there. Hey, Hedwig, how you doing? No, there's no delay, Val. Okay, so looking at this, we get to, or at least there shouldn't be a delay. I haven't set any sort of delay. Yeah, I don't see any delay set. There we go. So looking at these, other things that we're going to notice is who are these guys? What are they doing here? This is Arcadia. This is the other big one that I would say happened. Things that were sort of relevant. Obviously, Siena Heights win over Fisher. Most relevant thing that happened. Absolutely huge. Shot them up. St. Clair lost to Blinn in ABC, but then beat Blinn back in, at least I think that happened in ABC. But then St. Clair did get the win right after the patch, that actually pushed people more towards Mauga in Nace, and that is going to be relevant. That was enough to flip their order here and put St. Clair back ahead of Blinn. Blinn played one final match yesterday versus Bryant Stratton. That went as teams would expect, where Bryant Stratton won that. Blinn got a single map there. And then Arcadia, CSULB, of course, got the win over Illinois Orange. Fantastic. And Arcadia, in their Division 2 NECC run, like CSULB, NECC Division 2 beat Illinois Orange. Arcadia went through Converse B, they went through Georgia Tech, and they got to Cumberland. And they couldn't handle Cumberland, but they got a couple maps there. That was a big deal. That's put them on, put them here in the 20, not in the core teams area, because Georgia Tech, other than the end of last semester, isn't in there. Neither is Converse B, but beating Cumberland would have certainly been interesting. Probably would have done it, though maybe not, because Cumberland has a couple wins there now, but certainly no established history. But we'll jump over to those real quick. No, we don't need that. What we need is this. We can see CSULB Gold's run. Obviously, ran through here. Interesting things that I would point out here. Illinois Wesley, good finish for them. Good to see them regain their footing, but I wouldn't discount Santa Cruz here either. Santa Cruz got taken down by Illinois Orange and then by CSULB Gold. So are these the third place team? Is this the third place team? Yes, on paper it's Illinois Wesley. Could totally be Illinois Wesley. But I do see Santa Cruz. Wait a second, that order important, etc. Maybe that matters. And you go, well, did Illinois Wesley do any better against Illinois Esports? Illinois Orange, Illinois Champaign? When they matched them? No, that was a 3-0. This was a 3-0. So that doesn't really mean anything to us. And yes, of course, you people are going to be right. We'll need to see Arcadia on a patch that isn't quite so brawly to see how they handle something. Illinois esports players may not have been able to pop off quite the way we'd expect on a brawlier meta. Sometimes teams will do better in a brawl meta and can't stick if it switches to something pokier or divier that's a little bit more mechanics heavy. But I'm excited to see it because that's probably one of the more interesting stories this semester. And usually once you've gotten that taste of higher level play, usually you're able to go, okay, you get used to the speed of the game and it's there. But their players were certainly unknowns to me. You think your game against IWU was harder? Okay, good to know. Good to know, Ghost Dog. Ghost Dog's over on CSULB. That's you, right? I just noted it because it's interesting. I mean, I could perfectly happily, in fact, I probably would perfectly happily go like that order, but yeah. That's fine. Okay. So those are sort of the main things. And then the other one that we were going to look at, if we can get our other bracket here, this is the bracket that everyone expected this match to happen and expected it to be a little closer and then expected a repeat here. It was not a repeat here. It was not close the first time. Georgia Tech unfortunately could not keep up with Cumberland. And then Arcadia came in, and these were some hard fought maps. Like, they got the two maps. I vaguely remember that I think they were, at least in contention for a third. I think by the time Cumberland was picking up their fourth map, it was pretty over. But they were hanging in this series. Those two maps looked pretty real. They easily could have landed a third map based on what I remember there. And Georgia Tech couldn't touch them. And Converse couldn't really hang either. And again, you would have seen my prediction. I think Arcadia may have even done a little video on it, that I would have expected this to go 1, 2, 3 as the teams in here. Interesting to see that go a different way. Interesting to see Arcadia put themselves on the map here. And yes, so then we are jumping over to here, if this wants to load. This was the other tournament that happened. I wouldn't consider this as prestigious, as definitely ABC is the most prestigious in our scene. CECC, the Commissioner's Cup, is probably the second most prestigious thing. And then NACE and NECC, their Legends divisions, Division 1, Supers, whatever they want to call it, is probably at a very similar, maybe half a tier back from CECC there. Not as high as ABC, but those are sort of the four main things that I would say generate the most credit clout, the most important matches, somewhat in those tiers. I would consider this lesser than, so I'm not discounting this against Fisher as hard as, their performance in ABC, but this was Fisher. This was Fisher running their starters. The VOD exists. You can go see it. You can go see them running the same people that they got third place in ABC with. And this is Siena Heights University winning 4-1. And that 4-1 that one isn't actually real. There was some drama, forfeited map, streaming when not supposed to be streaming. Whatever going on there. I think that's been discussed enough in Okra. If people want to get into it in the chat, I suppose we could talk about it. But that map win was a rules map win, not a map win. So, interesting. And then we see Ball State University. I believe this is actually a revenge win. I think Ball State beat Siena Heights, and that was one of the things holding them back before. This doesn't completely undo it. A team that is at a caliber that can beat the number 3 team should not be at a caliber that they can lose to Ball State. Ball State has nothing else that good. So Siena Heights definitely had some consistency issues, or maybe really grinded it for this, or this meta particularly suited them. But this is what we're looking at here in terms of interesting matches. Okay. Frisco the GOAT. Yeah, Frisco over at CSULB, exactly. Ball beat Siena and CECC. Right. And Siena Heights said, oh, we were super tired, we were exhausted, this and that, but like everyone had been playing a ton of matches. That's and that's part of it, and it all sort of factors in of how likely is a team to win. So Siena Heights may be the new UC San Diego. UC San Diego isn't that team anymore, but UC San Diego used to be the team that would lose to Illinois Wesley, lose to maybe Las Vegas Rebels Gaming, but then beat a Converse or an ASU. And you just go, what do you do with that? They can swing high, but they also can, lose to top 32, top 24 caliber teams, but they can also beat top 10, probably not top 6 quality teams. That's not UCSD anymore. That very well looks like it may be Siena Heights, though their upswing may be higher. Their total swing may be at an elevated place. If they beat a top 3 team and then they lost to Ball, who was, for me at least, is in my 20 slot here. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Fun story to watch. Very fun story to watch for Fisher as well. They came in here with a roster that was not up to the, we'll say, historical name player recognition quality of Fisher's A roster, and they got third place, which is a very good finish for Fisher. Other things in here, storylines that we sort of saw through the semester. UCI, I kind of feel like for the first time in a while proved that they deserve to be recognized as a top Overwatch program. Maybe that's a little like harsh of me to say, but UCI, of course, historically has been in the scene, was one of the early teams to invest in the scene, has always sort of been like a team just outside the champion tier, just outside the unbeatable teams. When it was Maryville and Harrisburg, well, UCI and Utah could challenge them. When it was Northwood and Maryville and Bay State, well, UC Irvine wasn't quite at that level, but could beat up most of the others. Like they sort of had started to fall. I wouldn't say hugely fall from that, but maybe that tier had gotten crowded enough, and they hadn't done anything that I would have considered particularly impressive in a while, especially after that loss to their own B team, club team, when Romani went ahead and got a top six finish while the main roster, the varsity roster, missed. Now, that was a little bit ago at this point, and Romani is, of course, on the main team again now, but this is, to me, was a good finish for UC Irvine, or at least they looked good when ABC was being played to get there, so nice to see that sort of happen. I do think their players are starting to get towards graduation, except Rhino, so we'll be interested to see how they retool. Northwood had a disappointing semester, no question. At the very end, they looked like they understood the meta better than these teams. They couldn't quite do it. They basically threw key team fights twice in there and got eliminated, but they did look like they got it for the meta in ABC there. Just didn't actually quite matter. Most of their season was a disappointment. At the end, they looked like a good team, yes, but if your whole season's kind of been a mess and then you choke twice, very winnable stuff. I want to say someone recovered 100 meters against them on Colosseo, if memory serves. Yeah, it sucks. Like you were, just two small mistakes away from winning, from making like a top three, etc. But you also floundered the whole semester, and then at crunch time, you didn't quite make it either, even though you performed a lot better. That's going to be a disappointing finish for them. Maryville, their players seem like they were checked out. I think we will now have a question of how does the scene look on the other side of Christmas break, on the other side of hey, Marvel Rivals exists now, and will that cause the thing about Marvel Rivals and why it's relevant is anyone who's looking to make pro level, to like be a pro, anyone who really wants to do that, be it casting, be it playing, be it observing, be it tournament organizing, be it, managing and owning a team, whatever, you sort of have to, if you're not already successful, you have to jump into the new thing if you want to make it. You sort of have to do that. If you didn't ever quite make it to the tier 1 level, if you aren't like a top 5 tier 2 player and you go, hey, I really want to be an esports pro, or I really want to be an esports, and I'll use professional at a wider range there, not like a wider range, longer skill discrepancy, but wider range across multiple things, it does get you to a place where you sort of have to chase the next thing because that's where the eyeballs are, that's where you can make a name, that's where you can sort of get good before everything is established and nepotism is quite the same effects it does, etc. So I do expect to see some of what I would call the tier 2.5, tier 3 people who really believe that they can go pro and really want to do that to clean out and sort of spend all or most of their time on Rivals, which will be interesting. Now, if Rivals flops, that won't matter, but it doesn't look like it's off to an immediate flop there. So we'll see. We will see what that does to the scene here. Me when UCI has Romani and Rhino, but plays Mashiro on tank. Yeah, that was great. The Mashiro Malga, but hey, it worked for him pretty well. Almost got there. Anyway, that wasn't some Rivals promotion thing. That was just, it's gonna, this is sort of a, in summary, in reflection, how did teams perform for this semester, and what are things going forward going to look like? And I do think that will be a question. Are some of these teams going to get gutted a little, even if they keep their rosters in terms of their players not paying as much attention to Overwatch because they sort of believe they don't have a future there, but because it's fresh and new, think they can prove themselves as the guy in a similar game? So that will be interesting in terms of how that transforms the next season. Other things transformative next season. Obviously, we know Briarcliff is picking up meaningful players. Amari, of course, is going to be over there, as we understand. Amari was announced at the beginning of this fall semester, but didn't actually play this fall semester. Supposedly will be playing in the spring. They've got a couple other pickups that I know about beyond that. Probably no one quite as impressive as Mari, but players that will round out that roster and make it good. I would be shocked if they don't end up in the core collegiate tier somewhere in here. Other things, again, we just look at this. What's Converse doing? Is Converse continuing to pass the baton to this next team? Is this next team going to live up to the standards of old Converse, or do we still have another semester with these guys? That becomes a question. ASU looks like they somewhat recovered from the silliness that was them just doing terrible in the Amalgamata shift. They didn't get demoted for that. They got demoted for their loss in ABC2 Converse. They then didn't look good for a while. They got challenged hard in the CEC West Coast qualifier, but they did hang on by the skin of their teeth and get the wins that they were supposed to. It was just repeatedly way closer than you would have expected against teams like CSULB, Washington, etc. It looks like they cleaned that up based on some of the stuff that you saw on Face It, and then performed like the sort of like the team you'd expect to get. Maybe not at the top 10, top 8 level that we would have expected from them at the beginning of this semester, but safely in the core again. You did not get cut from the pit. I don't think I cut anyone from the pit. I think the pit's still going strong. I tend not to delete people from the pit. I mean, if they fold their team, I suppose I could leave them down in here. But I mostly, once I've ranked you for the semester, leave you ranked and just move you around unless something happens like, hey, they folded their team. At the bottom of the pit, I'm not always doing the closest tracking. The higher in the pit it gets, the more we're paying attention to the actual movement of the matches, and the more they actually get deep enough in tournaments to find each other and establish the rankings by winning and losing against each other. But hey, and there's a couple other teams that could be in the pit that aren't here. There just are. This I'd have to recreate a new one each time to save stuff. I have to manually add the images to my template, and then it doesn't save those. So like Arcadia, CSULB, I had to manually add this time. I'll save them to next semester's template, but I sort of have to take some guesses, or in the middle of the semester remake it with new relevant teams so that they stick and stay with the logos here. The pit seems smaller. Oh, the reason the pit seems a little smaller is because this Misfits category exists. This isn't quite lower core because I don't think these teams have quite performed at the core level. Mizzou's only win that I really care about, I think, is over Blinn at LAN at the very beginning of the semester. I don't remember if Rutgers has a win that I really care about. UTD has a win I care about, but also has losses. Might even have a loss to CSULB, I'd have to remember, or maybe it was Santa Cruz. Anyways, had a loss in Swiss to a team that definitely wasn't in the core. So yeah, that's sort of what we're looking at. Illinois Orange, we discussed why they've fallen out, why they're not at that level anymore. They haven't won a match I care about in over a year. They haven't. And now they've got two losses to CSULB there. So looking at that, the reason that the pit might look a little bit smaller is this misfit category has grown. Obviously, Arcadia isn't here as a misfit. They didn't lose some match that they should have. CSULB, as best I can tell, didn't lose some match that they shouldn't have, except maybe if we go back much earlier in the semester into the Swiss phase of ABC. But these are things where, okay, I have to call the tier something, and this isn't a core tier. This isn't quite. It's pretty messy like the pit, but you've got some pretty quality teams in here, but quality teams in here that have not proven that they belong in core collegiate, where these guys trade with each other to a degree. I suppose trade with each other to a degree. No one actually trades with Winthrop, but I can't leave Winthrop in the champions tier after their performance in, was it NECC? Is this my champion division? No. I believe it was NECC. This was terrible. This was terrible. Winthrop was completely out of their league in this match. Winthrop was the worst team than ISU at the end of ABC here, and that's the most prestigious thing. That's what matters the most. Winthrop was the worst team than ISU, but for this match, they looked like they could play. You can even see that they beat ISU in the upper finals, but then ISU came back, and while Winthrop could sort of hang, ISU was the better team. That was not at all true in this more recent match here in the NECC finals, where this was a stomp and it was, Flashpoint 3-0, full completion on push. Like it was bad. It was bad. Um, Now, obviously, there's the conflict of this stuff happened after Stockholm. Players were prioritizing Stockholm on ISU, I'm sure, to a greater degree than they were on Winthrop, and only a couple. Actually, only one on Winthrop was relevant because I believe Lethal didn't go. But that that happened. That very much happened. And then lastly, I suppose we'll bring up Nace. I think we may have talked about it last time, and I think we honestly, it's kind of the least interesting. Usually I would consider Nace the one of the two most prestigious third-party tournaments. Again, Nace and NECC. I don't really care about this playoff result that much. I think the interesting things here are St. Clair beating Blinn, which I wouldn't have expected, but did happen. Especially wouldn't have expected when we got a patch that made Mauga a little better, and St. Clair was playing Mauga in ABC at the end there. But we don't care too much about this because Nace had in-person rules that conflicted with the timing on Stockholm, and that created a situation where uh, Winthrop couldn't really field their team. So you can see Mizzou beating Winthrop here. That's not real. Winthrop had a sub in and a sub from their varsity team and at least two players from a lower division team playing on it. So that sort of made this not real, which sort of destroys the integrity of the bracket completely in a single elimination bracket. There is no lowers here. There is no, oh, if you happen to be on the ISU side of the bracket, you might be better than all of the teams on this other side of the bracket, other than ISU. But you can't really know that because it was single elimination and Winthrop destroyed the bracket by not being Winthrop. Winthrop had Collusion, Lyran, a Junkrat one trick, and another sub from the B team. Hey Sky Sniper, how you doing? How you doing? Okay. Um we do see at the very least Maryville got themselves a little bit of redemption here with the run through. Obviously, them getting Mizzou rather than Winthrop makes it lesser redemption. Winning that would have certainly been redemption, and then got wiped out by ISU. But everyone gets wiped out by ISU, and we do see Maryville down here into the core collegiate tier, the lowest they've been in years, quite frankly. Probably the lowest they've ever been, actually. Harrisburg fell down to Harrisburg fell down about this far, probably had about this many schools ahead of them when their program disbanded. So hopefully that's not a sign that Maryville's about to disband, but that does become not them disbanding a serious question, but what is their refill scenario? What is their refill plan? Because that's also a lot of players that have been there for a while, like Irvine, and they do a pretty good job of moving their players along towards graduation in the sense of hey they're getting degrees, not hey they do a semester at Northwood, then a semester at Fisher, then a semester at so and so, and sort of okay who's going to give the most scholarship money this semester, shop around mercenary style, then a semester at Winthrop, then yeah, anyway. So that's kind of what I think was interesting here. I don't need to belabor this. We're entering what would be scrim time for teams. We're actually in scrim time. So for those of you that are here because you're not scrimming because it's finals week, well, it is finals week. So I'm going to catch up on chat, throw in any topics you want to talk about in terms of if you have a topic you want me to cover, like bold predictions for next semester in terms of teams moving around. Again, I told you I thought Briarcliff would go up pretty significantly. Let me know. Some of this is going to depend on what our patches look like. We obviously had an entire semester of Orisa and Mauga metas, and now we just saw Mauga nerfed and Orisa buffed again, and we're sort of like Juno's been very centralizing on brawly metas. I personally think the Mauga meta was a lot healthier than the Orisa meta because the Orisa meta was just a little, how shall I say? I preferred the Malga meta to the Orisa meta. The Malga meta played like more normal brawl metas, I'll say, whereas the Orisa meta was just sort of like so ult focused. The ults drove so much of the Orisa meta. The Malga meta, you could regularly see a team pop one ult versus the opposing team pop two ults, and the team that popped one ult win. It had more play potential for team fights there. So that was, in my opinion, a better one. It lasted less time than the Orisa meta, but we will see. We will see what's going on. In terms of next semester, we've got probably about a month and a half, maybe two, before we start seeing real matches next semester. So that will be interesting. Let's catch up on chat. Scrimming despite finals week. We're in deep. Need to get out of Misfits. Input Logic, which team are you with? Which team are you with there? Me, when Juno didn't get touched, I'm ending it all. Don't end it all, Hedwig. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just end Juno. I mean, no. CSULB. Hey, you do, but you guys made a great climb. You guys made a great climb. You got Illinois Orange. You really got them twice. You took them down. There's no asterisks this time, and if there were, I don't care anymore. Fantastic on you guys. Now you do need to go. The next step is to do what Cumberland was trying to do all semester and got done at the end, which is find 2 wins over core collegiate teams. You're in a place where 1 win over a core collegiate team might do it for you if you keep pushing back and resisting losses to anyone in, below you in this tier or in the pit. But because you've, sort of steadily climbed here, got a couple good things there, but you generally, to make it into the core, you got to beat a couple teams in the core. You got to do it, and you usually have to do it more than once. Otherwise, you just sort of sit as a gatekeeper. And I'm going to be honest, next semester, I would expect, again, it depends on meta shifts, but I would expect Rutgers and Mizzou to both propel themselves back up pretty easily. UTD is going to be a question of whether they run pedal or not. Sorry, not sorry. And it doesn't seem like they intend to full-time run pedal. It seems like that was a, hey, people aren't available, so he filled in situation. Okay. Well, run pedal and pedal care enough sort of thing, but hey. What team has the Scooby-Doo logo? The Scooby-Doo logo is Pittsburgh. Yes. Yes. That's because they used to run with the name Mystery Machine. Not this current roster, but previous iteration of them ran with the name Mystery Machine when they would sign up for ABC. And Blizzard even joked about it, like, we don't even know how you guys find this team to communicate with because, like, we can barely even tell what school this is. And, they have the data that they signed up with, etc. They were fun. It's also fun back when Blizzard had feedback meetings. But hey, and you could talk to them. Temporal starting drama? I didn't start drama. What drama did I start? Oh, the pedal playing or not playing thing? Sure, come at me. Come at me, bro. I don't care. Okay. Northeastern, only if CEC won. What about Northeastern? What about Northeastern? You taking shots at my team? I will not remotely be upset if you are. We've got some work to do. Okay. You were so close to beating ASU. Yeah, ASU looked shaky. ASU looked shaky, and maybe in hindsight they look less shaky because you guys are a more proven team now, but they looked shaky in that CCC West. That would have been a good win for you guys. And you have to, if you're this quality of team, if you are this core collegiate quality of team, you have to win when opportunities are given to you. Like, you have to find my opponents are a little weak because, they didn't sleep well. Someone's stressed because they have a final. Someone's girlfriend broke up with them. They're played in too many tournaments in a row. If you want wins, you have to go, well, when we're given the opportunity, we do it. Not like we rule book them or that, though we're seeing more of that and I hate it. But you have to go, hey, we're not letting this opportunity slip through our fingers. We're always playing well enough that if there's a chink in the armor, that'll be enough for us to win, sort of thing. And wasn't enough this time, and I don't expect ASU to be that vulnerable next time. So you guys are going to have to, step by step build up a little higher to find that win. Widowmaker player can't hit a single shot. Yeah, where's Summer Hedwig? Where's Summer Hedwig? And now you're gonna like be away from your computer for a couple weeks? What is this nonsense? For real, CSULB Frisco was in the Okra server before us. I think you guys had one person there, I think, because that's, I think, where he got the abbreviation from, right? He was looking up the abbreviations, and him over in Boston wouldn't have known about that school. I'm in California. I know about the CSU system. I know you guys are Long Beach, but he wouldn't have even known about that when he got into the server before the rest of you. It was you. There we go. Oh, it's because we played a CSULB team. That could be it. That could be it. Doing great. I'm doing great as well. Thank you, Sky Sniper. Take a quick look here. Anything else? Power rankings. Maybe your net sucks. I'm not helping sound check next time. Blah will do it. I appreciate that you helped this time. I was surprised it didn't work because I tested it specifically in Discord to make sure. Because occasionally my mic does have issues, but I tested in Discord because it's easy to run a test there before going live on these. Okay. Why is Bellevue so high? What have they done recently? Excellent question, Kyle. Excellent question. So, why is Bellevue so high? What have they done recently? Well, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see ABC would be one thing that we'd be looking at here, and we can see our total finished places, and they got seventh, eighth, so that's going to be something that we're looking at there. They got seventh, eighth. We look at this, and this is the most meaningful thing. We'll go down to the actual places. Definitely agree that all of these teams are better than them. No question whatsoever. Cool. We're good. Then we go, okay, let's look at the teams that are at a sort of similar caliber, similar tier, eyeball test, whatever we want to here. They lost out to Fisher, the number 3 team. Can't hold that against them. And their other loss was 2, as we look back up here. The loss to Cumberland was bad, no question. The win over Converse was good. Loss to Cumberland was bad. And then I think what I'm going to have is that I don't care about. That's a loss to Maryville. That's really not hurting them. And I don't think I have any CC from them. So that, it's where they sit. It's sort of where they've been. I don't really think there's a huge question. If I would look, oh, I know why. Blinn would have been up over here before. Blinn would have been here before, but I had to move Blinn back when Blinn lost the rematch to St. Clair. Like, if we look at these teams, I would, before the rematch that happened that you guys lost, I would have put Blinn here. I would have probably had a pretend tier break here. I wouldn't actually have done a tier break, but St. Clair didn't look good on Mauga in the Orisa meta. Converse, had the good surprise win over ASU, and that looked good, but honestly didn't look fantastic outside of that. They've been a team that's been up and down all semester, and while they had the good win over ASU, they didn't look fantastic. ASU looked bad until recently. That happened. After we entered this Mauga they looked bad. They were super vulnerable in CECC, and Cumberland is the least proven and least meaningful wins. Their good win over Bellevue, fantastic, but they don't really have any other wins over these teams here. And they also have something where you can see when they're about to win a series, they start playing a little bit to not lose. I've seen it multiple times out of them. And then they, for example, drop a map and have to go play another map. You saw that against Bellevue. I've seen that against another team. These teams all look shaky. I would have said this team looked shaky as well. So, and Bellevue didn't look all that shaky. Now, was Bellevue's May solution to the Orisa meta when we won it worse than what the other teams were doing? Yeah, it was worse than what these teams were doing, but I had no question that Bellevue wasn't in this tier. That was clear. And they were better than these teams. That was clear. And I'd have said they were better than St. Clair as well, but then I had to move Blinn back behind St. Clair because the most recent match happened. That's why Bellevue's so high. Because Bellevue isn't as good as these teams, but is better than these teams. What do you want me to tell you? Fair. There you go. Cool, cool. In Siena Heights, I talked about a lot. Of course, they got the win over Fisher. They have the bad loss to Ball earlier. I think they're going to be a question mark team for a while. I think they can hit some high highs, but I expect that they will continue to also hit some low lows. Not, top 64 loss lows, but top 20 loss lows. Like if, for example, Illinois reestablished themselves by beating Siena Heights, or CSULB proved they were real by being Siena Heights, or Mizzou or Rutgers or even UTD went, no, 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 we're real by beating Siena Heights, I wouldn't blink. I'd go, yeah, that's about right. I think that would be a more likely team in some ways, even though I'm putting them over here, and they've absolutely earned being over here, beating Fisher in a less prestigious tournament, but beating Fisher, the third best team based on ABC, uh, I would expect them to be more likely to drop a match to one of these teams than Blinn, for example. Okay. What do you rate UCLA, if anywhere? I don't really rate them. I mean, UCLA has been fine in the pit. UCLA would be in the pit. I mean, they're not in the misfit tier. They're definitely not core collegiate. They're in the pit. Where do they belong in the pit? I'd have to look in a serious way, but like all of these teams in the top half of the pit have kind of proven themselves in some way this semester. We saw Illinois Wesley got third place in their NECC Division Two. Slugs maybe had as good an argument for third place, though didn't get it. Grandview is half of a good roster. Sorry, other half. And hasn't like embarrassed themselves compared to when they were good. They're not as good as when they were good. They had a semester that they were the gatekeeper. They didn't really make core, but they were the gatekeeper between core and everyone else, and they just didn't lose to everyone else. Miami, Ohio sure missed top 64, but they had a crazy hard ABC run, and made some of the teams that they lost to flinch. They actually had a good match against Bellevue where I want to say, were like a team fight away from winning on Gibraltar, which would have been the series for them. Yeah, Fisher 2. People have had Fisher 2 much higher for most of the semester. I never did, but that's real players, certainly. Okay. So any other topics people have in here for me? I saw that was from Kyle. I don't see anything for that besides mic testing. We've talked mostly about, in terms of predictions for next semester, I think it'll be a question of how tapped in are people for rivals slash how well does it do in terms of pulling away people that are trying to be pro in an esport, any esport, because that's a lot of what populates some of this, not quite pros is a lot of what populates some of the upper ranks of collegiate here. There's also the question of, what do the moves look like, the futures? How do some of these teams rebuild, continue, as players graduate, I think Blinn has a DPS player to solve. They're a community college, I believe, so they can do admissions probably on a quicker turnaround than some of the other schools, though some of these schools can do them pretty quick. So I would mostly expect them to solve that. Maybe Kyle will tell us that they've already solved that. I don't think he will. That would be spoiling things. But, what's Converse's future look like? Is it just their B team, or are they going to do more recruiting there? And will Cumberland sort of keep that hunger and do it again? These are all interesting storylines. Again, these teams I would expect to recover. This one I have less belief will recover. This one should recover a bit better. And then how hungry, how, I don't know, maybe we'll be like chomp, chomp, um, chomp, chomp. How hungry is this team? Will Illinois recover? That would be UTD question marks for me. I think and Chopper's got to be approaching his end there as well. Will this team really recover? And then same hunger question. We'll do this. Terrible drawing for Arcadia, New Kids on the Block. Yeah, these are all real questions. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for me. No need for this to run long. This was the end of semester one. I am curious what we'll get patch wise. I know we just had a patch, but what we'll get patch wise before or as the spring semester starts, because I could go for some dive or some poke. I could go for it. If we're going to do more brawl, so be it. I know that's kind of a design goal of the devs, whether they believe it or not. But I could go for something a little bit different. It'd kind of be fun, kind of be different. Okay. That'll do it for now, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Temporal out.